Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. Uh, Doc, would you tell us about yourself?
Oh, God, that's a short story. Doc Sheldon here, Intrinsic Value SEO, Search News, Deep SEO Conference, and I'm just here to take up space.
And Terry, would you introduce yourself?
Terry Van Horn. I live in Toronto. I'm a retired SEO. Now I just like to screw people around.
And Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital. And I'm in Carlsbad, California. So we've got 3 countries represented.
Pretty much got North America bracketed.
Mm-hmm. So what's new in the world of SEO? Terry?
Oh, wow. Not well, there's some new stuff. I was going through the things and found a few good articles. One that I thought was kind of funny was code to text as a ranking factor.
Code to text is a ranking factor.
Yeah.
Remind me of Ma's spam scores.
Well, yeah.
'Cause
There's
those
lots of
Ma's-
those in this business.
You're talking about code to text ratio.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I still like to have a good code to content ratio. I do.
Well, it helps speed up your page load, if nothing else. It lightens your server load, but not a ranking factor.
I think when I don't know, because speed itself is a ranking factor. I think if you've got a heck of a lot of code and very little content to go alongside it, put it this way, I don't think you've then got the content signals to carry all that extra page load.
Yeah. Barry Adams on the Twitter feed on this post said that he's seen bloated code have problems getting crawled. I can believe that.
Sure.
And same with, there used to be a lad who said that HTML verification was also
There's more than one that still says that.
I've done HTML validation on sites and had pages that had so many errors. I've written in audits. Well, I don't believe that HTML validation is a ranking factor at Google. You've got so many errors on this page that if you don't fix some of them, it's going to just screw up, and it's not going to show properly to people.
Well, if the errors are a certain type, it would actually change the way Google is reading the content. And so it might not understand things as well, if you had decent code.
So when
plus it can slow down its ability to actually crawl. It's taken an awful lot of time now to crawl each page. If you're a large site and you've got a restrictive budget, you're going to be seeing some impact.
If you've got more than 1,000 errors on a single HTML page,
oh God,
you're in the wrong game.
It's time to fix those. It's like having 100 pixel by 100 pixel profile image that's 16 megabytes.
That's a lot of data embedded in that image.
It is. It was a picture of a friend. I let him know he better change his picture.
Funny enough, there is an industry that uses that a lot, where they've got huge images. It's the computer games industry, where some of them, they save the save file as an image with embedded data. So you get a JPEG or a PNG with a load of data in it, and that is the save file. You wouldn't want to try and get those indexed.
Well, there are images that are carrying malware too.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about EXIF data in images. just a few minutes ago before the start of the show, and how location information is contained in a lot of photographs now.
Yeah.
And it's quite possible Google may be looking at that when it's coming to your website and looking at your images, and it wants to see pictures of your business.
They have a problem right now where on their business listing, their profile, they moved 2 months ago, and it shows a picture of the new building with a map of the old place. So you're seeing two different pictures. I tried 3 times to change that on the map. Good luck. I think it's someone does it when they get around to it. Oh, I feel like doing this today.
Now, funny enough, that's where good EXIF data should have been picked up by Google to notice these are 2 different GPS coordinates. It cannot possibly be the same place.
Yeah, as soon as you go in and change the address on your Google business listing, they should change all that automatically. Like change the map address, change the pictures, all that stuff. But they don't do any of it. In fact, when I looked closer, I found out I had to re-verify the address. And they don't tell you that either. When you change the address, they don't say, oh, you're not verified now. You have to go re-verify. They don't really tell you that.
Last time I moved and changed my address, Google put a red tag on my knowledge panel that says this business is permanently closed.
At least they didn't do that.
It took me a day to find a phone number to call somebody and tell them I'm not closed.
Yeah. Bill Slawski is still open.
So, move 5 miles down the street. You're still in business.
Yeah.
I had something like that about 1.5 years, 2 years ago with a client who moved from a ground floor office up to a larger second floor office in the same building. And they labeled them as permanently closed. And it took a lot more than a day never did find a phone number. Finally, through a friend, got an email address. I
was walking around the streets of London a couple years ago trying to find Google headquarters in London.
Good luck.
I knew it was in a certain neighborhood, so I found the closest food place, and I asked them, "Where's Google?" They said, "Oh, that building right there."
There you go. Yeah. A whole different kind of search.
Yes.
Find a Starbucks, ask them, they'll be able to tell you.
They did invest a lot in the area in prettifying it up and making it a bit nicer, because it had been a pretty dodgy area of London, famous for street prostitution, which might be why Google chose
appropriate, Ammon. I can. No wonder their realtor took them right over to that part of town.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's other people who sell everything. But yeah, I don't think they were allowed to put up, giant Android statues everywhere to kind of. London's pretty historic. They're rather fussy about what monuments they put up.
No dinosaurs.
Otherwise, you probably couldn't miss Google's office.
Yeah. Well, I finally made it to the office. I got inside. Didn't have a sign on the outside of the building. But once you got inside and looked at the reception area, they had all the businesses listed over the reception area.
Yeah. It's surprising how many very, very big international companies have, homes in buildings that are very plain looking. And unless you actually look at the companies listed from the lobby, you have no idea who's in there.
Do you think that's largely driven by historical preservation, or?
I think some of it Some of it is. There's certainly there's a rule on a lot of things about historical preservation that you have to maintain the look. It has to stay as much
Sure.
as possible like the look. This is a major problem for the railway stations and for London Underground, where several of their stations are listed buildings. You're not allowed to change the view, and yet you've also got to put in modern escape signs and safety signs and all kinds of, and they have a real conflict, and it takes them months to resolve exactly how they can comply with both.
You have some homeowner association type things in some towns that require you not be allowed to have things like screen doors or ATMs.
Yeah.
I had a client when I was doing architectural work. I had a client who was required to put in, before they could get a certificate of occupancy, they had to add wheelchair ramps, and the city would not allow it because they had it marked as a heritage building, and it was going to change the view. So he's just invested $3.1 million in this building, and now he's not allowed to get a certificate of occupancy because he's not allowed to obey the federal fucking law. Come on. It took us almost 4 months to win that battle. And then we ended up having to put it on the side of the building so that people with a wheelchair actually had to wheel almost 50 yards down the side of the building and then get the ramp and come back towards the front to climb the ramp. They didn't want the ramp visible as a ramp from the front of the building. It had to be just a riser. And it was just a nightmare. Some of the most hard-headed knuckleheads I've ever dealt with in my life.
Yeah.
Government.
I always say, if you really want to screw something up, get the government involved.
There you go. Yeah. Well, like, what's the biggest lie in the world? I'm with the government. I'm here to help you. Yeah.
So Google is now showing more rich results for items with that structured data.
Yep, product stuff. Do you
So
think
this
that
since
they
the product
use?
review in November, December?
Yeah, it was
They got a big
something.
product update then, didn't they?
Now,
Do you think they use the schema build to kind of train how they would be able to parse it out using tab data, etc.?
I was surprised to see them looking at product feed information for e-commerce sites because they're learning about things like categories
Right.
from product feeds.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an iPhone or if you have an iPhone accessory, they're going to determine search results based on whether or not you're calling what you sell an accessory, like a charger or something
Right.
like that.
But what it was these rich results originally had to have schema. Now they're parsing data and
Well, the original rich results were books, and they moved to other things from books.
okay.
Didn't they include music at the same time? I think it was books and albums, wasn't it? Or at least they were close together.
Well, when they filed the patents for them, they first started with books, and they did continuation patent after continuation patent. The fourth one, they got rid of the books and just started talking about it as if it's any products.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember at some point they added films, but that wasn't at the front end.
No, I think it was the I can't remember if it was the very first major update to that. In my mind, that was the first big step, was expanding it beyond books. And it seemed to go sort of a bit like Amazon, from books to films and CDs and DVDs.
Right. I worked at a temporary seasonal job at an Amazon Amazon warehouse in Delaware. It was the second one. And somebody was there talking about Amazon, how Jeff Bezos wasn't too smart because
Yeah.
the company wasn't making any money.
Yeah.
No,
It's
poor
like-
bastards, they're going
It's
broke.
like every time he makes money, he goes out and buys something.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's how you make more money. You buy more things.
We're selling books, and then all of a sudden we're selling books and records. We're selling books and records and toys.
And now they're selling everything but newborn children.
Yeah.
And it's only Tuesday, so you know.
The major one I remember was someone at the company who said, you know, this is insane. They're spending $20 to acquire a customer that's only, you know, driving $10 of profit. You're losing $10 on every sale. And they did not understand what Bezos did, which was customer lifetime value.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Amazon was they needed you to make a couple of purchases so that recommendation list, which is what they did that nobody else did back then, worked. By the time you'd made 3 purchases, that list of 10 recommended items, half of them would be something you'd want. Now, admittedly, some of them you already had, but that was how good it was. It not only predicted your tastes, but to the extent where you'd probably already got some of these things.
There was an engineer at Amazon who had a blog. He was talking about life in Amazon and stuff like the fact that when it first started, they didn't have desks. They had chairs with legs. Everybody had chairs with legs. They were saving every penny they could.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, anybody that says Bezos isn't too smart doesn't have a good grasp on what smart really is.
Yeah.
That is one of the ultimate marketing-driven businesses where everything was carefully planned out.
Yep.
He knew the volumes he needed to do to get the discounts that he needed to get from the manufacturers to the point where Bill, back in the Creator Site Forum days, we dealt with somebody who dealt with a very specialized product, which was a piece of chess software. And Amazon were able to retail this at a profit, and a reasonable one, that was cheaper than she could get it from the manufacturer for. And she'd been one of the leading, you know, small distributors of this product from the start. The manufacturer discount meant that even with their profit tacked on, that was still cheaper than they were selling it to most other stores.
You know, as an aside, talking about Amazon, there was a thread on Facebook yesterday talking about the coal mining towns and how they would actually build company towns.
Yep.
And end up with slave labor because they provided your house, they provided your groceries, they provided everything. You know, so basically everything that they paid you, they were getting back. And the one point that they missed in that thread, you know, because people were defending Amazon because they're great, I love them, I get everything that I want that afternoon, you know. Yeah, but and they could never do that these days. You know, well, they could never do that those days either, but they did it. And the way that they did it, they didn't come in and say, you have to buy at our store. They had thugs that shut down every other store so that if you wanted to buy anything, that was the only choice. And then, because they were paying such a shit wage, they extended you credit because they're good guys. And now you owe them. So, you know, Tennessee Ernie had a good handle on it with his song, you know. It is the kind of thing that could happen these days. And Amazon isn't the only company that has the wherewithal to make something like that happen.
And Amazon's delivery practices have changed around other stores.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I always loved the William Gibson books, Neuromancer and that series. And there he was talking about corporations as nations, where the corporate entities had their employees, had their own towns, had their own rules, had their own police.
Yep.
And yeah, where that's not impossible to see.
That was
really isn't.
that was potentially a plot aspect of one of the Aliens movies,
Yeah,
or it was going to be
yeah.
one that Gibson wrote.
Absolutely. And we're at that kind of point where some of these companies have more international power to negotiate almost anything they want to than many small countries do already. If you compare Amazon to, one of the smaller bottom 10 percentile of the nations in the world, absolutely, it has more clout, it has more political power, and it has more financial power.
And they can get just about anything legalized.
Somewhat, yeah.
I know Amazon has offices in my town. I think they do consumer testing from here.
Yep. But
I don't think they have any in mind.
Let's not narrow this down to just Amazon. We all remember the story of Apple and the factory in China that was producing it, where people were committing suicide because the working conditions were so bad, and their answer was to put nets to catch where they jumped off of. It was a major incident for them at the time, but around that town where that factory was, yeah, absolutely, they owned the factory, they owned the best job in town, and the best job in town was awful, and they probably had you on credit. They'd lent you stuff to get in there, and you were stuck. Google has offices all over the world that employs thousands of people. We really don't know what goes on in their data centers. I do know Google's legal department is exceptionally good. I'm sure they have a hell of a lot of NDAs that keep things from coming out that a lot of us wouldn't like.
I'm sure.
I laugh every time I hear the phrase NDA in conjunction with Google, because I've gone to Google a couple times, and you stand in the lobby waiting for them to prepare an NDA for you, and it's 19 pages long. You never get to read it. You have no idea what's in it. You sign it if you want to go in.
Yeah.
Do they at least give you a copy?
No.
No.
Fuck no.
Wow.
You might be able to sue them then. So.
Actually, under Euro law, you probably would be able to. Because that is personal data. It's a contract you've signed.
It's as bad
They
as
have to give you a copy.
It's as bad as using Google Fonts on your website.
Yeah.
Well, that's another one of those things. I mean, of all the things Google have done, a lot of people, complain about them being the dominant search engine. Well, that's a really obvious thing, that people are choosing to search on Google. And we all remember when they weren't, and we all remember why they switched, and we all know why they stick there. We've seen other search engines. Google is mostly better. Bing competes in a lot of things. In some things, it's even better. But do you really trust Microsoft any more than you trust Google? So it doesn't have a clear edge. Nobody has a massive edge. Tioma had the opportunity with its search, but it was gimped by its owners. They wanted to monetize far too soon, too hard, I felt, where they needed to just bring that product up and get everyone used to it. The thing that I can't forgive is how Google Analytics killed most of the analytics market.
All of them.
We used to have so many options for log file analysis. I mean, there are some really great stats programs out there. We all remember ClickTracks, I'm sure, which let you do a visual walkthrough of the site with all the stats overlays, so you could look at your web page and see the percentage of people that were clicking each link, and explain to your customers and your clients why. Oh, look, that's why they're choosing this one, where it's positioned. it was a really great tool. We really don't see any competition in that market anymore, because who even thinks of using something other than Google Analytics most of the time? 90% of that market is sewn up solid.
There was a time when people were afraid to install Google products on their web pages.
Yep.
And maybe they had reasons to be afraid, but
Too late now.
Well, now they even
now they don't even think about it. They just install them.
yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw Google Fonts, I said, I'm not using this. It's to track you. No other reason to make them not cacheable. Especially when you're saying, oh, we're trying to speed up the internet. And then you turn around and make your fonts that are in almost every theme and WordPress non-cacheable.
Yeah.
And Doc says that if you try and host them locally, they'll screw with them so they don't work right.
Yeah.
Use,
I must
use-
admit, I still embed other fonts where I can. You know, it's a ludicrous situation when you consider the most widespread use of font on the whole of the internet is probably Web Awesome. You know, the one which is all the little logos and things, and it's in almost every WordPress theme because it's in almost every WordPress theme. It was part of the Bootstrap framework, which was used for a lot of themes. And yeah, you know, that font Awesome is almost everywhere. That doesn't feel the need to track you everywhere.
Yeah, I use a CDN for Bootstrap.
Yeah.
Well, it's cacheable. That's the main reason.
Exactly. I use the most common version on the most common CDN, so that there is the most chance possible they've already visited a page that was using the same and they've cached it.
Well, it also keeps everything up to date without having to download it and all that other stuff. And it comes up really quick. I didn't see it as an actual something that slowed the page down. And the other thing about Google Fonts is it can cause CLS on a page as well.
Yes.
Big time.
So there's lots of reasons not to use them. Unfortunately, not too many webmasters really understand what they're doing.
Right, and if we're concerned about speed, why are the slowest things on page usually something from Google?
Mm-hmm.
Google Tag Manager.
Always.
Yeah.
Tag manager, fonts, even analytics. If you don't put it in the head, and if you do put it in the head, you got other problems. Yeah.
Only an idiot puts analytics in the head.
Yeah,
Only
but there's an awful lot of idiots that follow Google's
well, they're
instructions,
following
which always recommend
recommendations
it.
from the know-it-all Google. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but anybody who's been on doing this longer than a day understands the difference between putting analytics in the head and putting them where they belong.
Right. When
It's
they
just
tell you
about
when they
that
tell you to
HTML
insert
tag.
when they tell you to insert that analytics tag right above the ending head tag, they're lying.
Yeah, plain and simple. It is. It's just bullshit.
Well, it skews results. It's counting pages that may not have even fully loaded before the person left the page.
But
I actually had that bite me in the ass.
But the scare tactic that they use to convince you is that if you don't put it in the head, you may not, if for some reason the person finds what they want 3/4 of the way down the page, and you put it in the footer, you won't know that they even visited the page, which is bullshit. But Google would never represent things to their own advantage.
Well, they should tell the full story. Here's why we want it in the head. Here's why it's recommended to put it, you know, at the end of the page. You decide what's good for you.
Yeah. I think basically we need to petition the W3C. We've got a head and a foot. I think we need an ass section of every page, and we can put all of Google's content in the ass.
Preferably
Which is where
from
they've been
beneath,
asking us to take it all along.
up the ass. Yeah, but Okay, well, there's our G bashing for the day.
Hey, Steve.
Hello, am I fashionably
Hey.
late? Oh my God!
Fashionable.
Whoa!
Hey,
There were rumors of you no longer existing. And
all true, but don't tell anyone.
fair enough.
So, Web 3.0 is not going to put us all out of work, huh?
I'm not sure.
SEO dies
How
when search engines die. If you
How-
haven't figured that out.
does an NFT figure into that?
Couldn't we wait until everyone actually had the same meaning for what Web 2.0 meant?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
some of the nonsense I see out there about Web 2.0
I'm reading stuff about somebody buying an NFT of some ancient image, thinking that it gives them copyright over that image.
Well, good luck with that.
It's like brain dead much?
So somebody bought the NFT for one of the original Dune books that Frank Herbert had drawn in or whatever,
Yeah.
and somehow thought that that gave them permission to make a movie. Yeah, what was the other one I read? Oh, somebody was making NFTs of specific colors under the theory that if anybody used that color in an NFT, then they owed you a commission.
And the scary thing is, not only are there people out there stupid enough to think that they can do that, there are other people out there that are stupid enough to believe them.
Well, they're the ones buying, aren't they?
Yeah, that's part of it, yeah. So the entire NFT thing just totally escapes me.
I
It's
see
like-
some of it.
It's like paying for licensing to be able to say, yeah, I saw the Mona Lisa, therefore, you know.
It's not much different than prints, where they took paintings and made prints out of them. And
Oh, it's much less than even that.
It's
Yeah.
In a
it's
way, it's
it's
an
more
alternate.
akin to Beanie Babies.
In a way, it's an alternate currency. A coin isn't actually worth X amount, and a $100 bill doesn't cost $100 to make. It's not actually worth $100. It's an agreement between an awful lot of people that this thing is a note that gets you $100. The
Doesn't
idea of
represent
NFTs is it's
$100
kind of the same
equality.
thing, except it's limited. It's a one-off. Except it's not limited because you can make as many NFTs as you like. It's kind of like having dollar bills that no two look the same, but they can be printed at will. There's a mix.
Fiat currency.
Yesterday I read Nike is in the process of suing one of the NFT guys for making NFTs of Nikes. And they're like, no, you can't use our swoosh in anything you're using to make money. And they're like, but it's just a picture of your shoe. And it's like, no, that's not quite how this is. You guys are playing this.
Not how this works. Huh?
Yeah, you get outside of North America, and a lot of people don't really understand copyright. I won't mention any country.
There's a hell of a lot of them inside North America too, Terry.
Well, okay, but it's even more so,
Bear in mind, for a long, long time, China didn't have the principle of intellectual property.
No,
Mm-hmm.
still don't.
And it was very profitable.
Yeah. If you thought of something and you're a citizen of this country, then that belongs to that country. Which, if you think about it, is exactly the way we treat employers. Capitalism has done the same for their interests. If you're an employee of this company and you think of it in paid time, it belongs to us. That is in intellectual property law now. If you do something in paid time, they own it. So there's not actually that much difference between the government saying, well, if you're in our country and you used our education system to get your brain to the state where this can be, and I kind of understand China's viewpoint. The viewpoint I never understood was the UK's, which was just as intellectual property was becoming the new currency of the world, was exactly when the UK stopped doing free university education and made our students switch to student loans. And let's make sure that, you know, if you are going to be educated, you owe us for the next 50 years. Opposite of what you really want. You know, if we're moving into an intellectual property based economy globally, you want as many smart people out there as possible. You really want people who are pushing the boundaries in science, in everything that you can, really. And,
well, even art and literature, you know, it's people don't understand how much of a contribution that culture, you know, that makes to a culture.
yeah. You know, one of the things is we need language as a tool, and it does help frame our thoughts. You can find a lot of cultural differences seem to be mirrored in their language. And there was a long time when they were debating whether one influences the other, and if so, in which order. But absolutely, you know, the words that you can have conversations in limit those conversations. People do throw up new terms, but you have to explain them. It's not quick. It's not instant. It doesn't have that mimetic spread.
No.
And the same for a lot of us think in our language. And it takes us years to learn to think in a different language. You talk to a bilingual, and they are usually thinking most things in their primary language and doing a translation in their head. But often they'll have this one or two concepts that they always think of the foreign word for, because it's the only one that has that exact meaning. And that really does show you how much words influence how we think.
Well, you know, I have actually faced that because I'm fluent in Spanish. I've lived down here for many years, and I usually, down here, I'm usually thinking in Spanish because it eliminates that need to translate. And once in a while, I'll be sitting around the house, you know, while I've got family members here who are bilingual, and I'll go from speaking Spanish with one person to go speaking with English or something, and they'll say, well, what is this? And I said, you know, I can't, in Spanish it's this, but I can't remember the English word for it. You've been down here too long.
Yeah, I must admit, I seem to think in a lot of different languages, but most of them are swear words.
Oh, those are always the first ones we learn in any new language.
Oh, yeah. What have we got to on the news this week? Oh, site-wides?
Is there value in site-wide links?
They're linked.
Just the first one.
Well, if memory serves, it seems to me that somebody asked a similar question like that to Matt Cutts, and he said basically that, yeah, it's a link, we're going to look at it, but if you put that same link 32 times on one page, we're only going to look at it once. Why would you think that if you put it one time on every single page of your site, we're going to look at it more than once?
At some point in time, people went through some strange revelation involving links. Like, links to other pages have to be topical.
Yeah.
They have
Or
to be the same.
relevant.
They have to be the same topic as your site for your site to get any value from them.
Yeah.
It's like
Even relevant.
thinking of links to Amazon or Yahoo. I don't have any Amazons or Yahoos. Now, I'm not going to buy any of those from Amazon or Yahoo. So are links to Amazon or Yahoo valueless?
Well, what got me is our site-wide links a ranking factor. It's a link, you dummy.
Well, that's essentially what they conclude. It's one of those awkward ones. Do your navigation links help your site? Yes, they do. Absolutely. Do they count? Yes. Yes, absolutely. We are seeing a huge amount of people that point out that internal links are one of the most important factors that a lot of people have been ignoring. We know from the days of link siloing how much the difference was between a site-wide link and not a site-wide link that was only in certain sections. It made a huge difference.
Well, and we've also known for more than a decade how much a very large site matters. I remember when Brent Payton used to brag about when he was running Chicago Tribune site, he could rank for anything in an hour simply by going into the CMS for the entire newspaper and changing a handful of links through some articles and just shove stuff to the top of the Google.
Yeah.
If you optimize a site like science.org and you link to something from the front page of this institution that was invented by Thomas Edison hundreds of years ago, it was page rank 9, and things you link to ranked overnight.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. There is a penalization system that was invented around certain types of site-wide links, particularly site-wide footer links to third parties. Yes, absolutely.
I think a link in certain parts of any page is going to be worth less than one in context in the actual copy. That's been known for what? I don't know. I've known about it for more than a decade.
Well, that's like something that's in your sidebar. If that's, you might as well put it in a footer. If it shows up on 70% of your pages in the sidebar, don't expect to get that kind of value out of it. It's going to be devalued to some degree.
Blog rolls. Blog rolls were awesome for discovering great content.
Yeah.
Back in the old days.
And those are gone. Nobody has them on their site anymore. It's like,
Funny enough, I saw one.
It hurt.
I saw one 2 weeks ago, and I was, oh my God, a blog roll. Fantastic. It really
You
was.
still have one, don't you, Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no reason to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Right.
There's a bit because of people hoarding links, nothing else. I think if you've got a site-wide, even to an external site, different domain, and it's in your navigation, it's going to count exactly the same as your navigation links would.
So I'm not afraid of somebody calling me a gatekeeper.
Oh, you read that tweet too, eh? Us old guys.
The guy who complained because I linked to patents and patents are difficult, and I write about patents and they cause him to scratch his head. He'd rather read something from somebody who writes something that's easy to read and maybe wrong, but as long as it's easy to read.
Yeah, they don't want to try and understand. They want everything given.
SEMrush just bought the perfect domain for him. He can nip over to SEMrush and find thousands of posts from Backlinko that fit exactly that description.
Yeah.
There was a guy in one of the groups. He was like, I've taken like 6 courses on Facebook ads and I've done all this stuff and I just don't understand it and it doesn't make any sense. Where else should I go? And somebody said like ad leaks. And they're like, cool, what's the link for that? And I'm like, okay, I think I see your problem. I don't need to go any further. You're not looking for a course to learn. You're looking for somebody to spoon feed you the solution. And it was just hysterical because like the next 3 people that posted suggestions for places for him to go, every single one of them, he asked for the link. It's
at least he met nice, polite people. I would have looked at his Facebook page, seen where he lived, gone to Google Maps and found the local elementary school and given him a link to that. Here's where you need to stop.
I need to remember that.
Now, this is the kind of fun you can have when you have lots of spare time on your hands. I love that. Or maybe even an insane asylum,
No, I mean there are people who they're trying to run before they can walk, and unfortunately, I think a lot of tools make that even more common.
Right.
There's a lot of people who think that if they just get this tool or that tool, then anyone can do this. Yeah.
If I was training SEOs, I would not allow them to use tools for the first year.
There you go.
That's why you're not allowed to use calculators in school the first few times you're learning math.
Yep.
You don't
So
understand
you
the process,
actually know how to
it's
do
not
it.
gonna help.
And we,
The only tool that I think is really useful when starting out is some kind of backlink analysis tool, because
Yeah.
that's data you can't get really any other way. You know, once upon a time, Google showed you enough of a smattering of your backlinks that it wasn't essential. These days, it's absolutely essential. You need some kind of backlink tool if you're going to deal with anything to do with backlinks. But you
well,
should
for
be
scale,
learning.
sure. I mean, it's just too much data to harvest manually.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
talk
the
about the
only ones that
calculators.
matter, though, are the ones that Google's index. So I used to just go and download what they showed, and that's it. That's all I care about. I mean,
used
they
to
don't
like the
come if
related-
Google doesn't know about them.
I used to like the related sites from Google. So you do your backlink analysis anywhere else, but you'd look at what Google thought was similar sites.
Yeah, can
And
be
it
very
would-
informative.
It would be nice if Google told you what they have indexed, but I don't trust. I don't trust what they show.
Nope. And it's really weird when we were doing backlink cleanups for clients years ago. You know, you're like, okay, well, let's go to Google and pull the, Search Console and pull the links and take a look. And you find out that Google's only going to show you like 10% of the links they know about. It's like, well, how am I
Yep.
supposed to clean this up?
Yeah.
If you won't tell me where the links are coming from.
Exactly.
And it's not like they didn't know the information. They didn't have the information to give us.
It's
I
not-
mean,
it's
Google's
not like you-
assumption was that if you've built them, you know where they are.
Yeah.
But
But
of
if you
course,
didn't
a
build
lot
them,
of
you're
people
screwed.
who get into trouble have outsourced to somebody who didn't tell them all the crap links they were getting. They've sent
Right.
them a report saying, we got you 50 links this month. Here's
So-
a smattering of a few, and they show you their best 10, not the
So
not
the
worst
people, the people from Fiverr aren't showing you where all the links are from.
That costs a tenner.
They got me on Forbes for just $50.
I've always thought that doing telesales outreach would be incredibly fun for that. In that we get you a link on Fords, and they pay, thinking they mispronounce that, and then you show them two dirty Ford cars with their URL scraped into the side of the dirt. There, 2 links on Fords.
Oh man. Here, for $500, I can get you a link on any university website.
Yeah.
Scholarships used to be, that was such a great way to get links from EDU sites that got blown up because somebody had to write a blog post about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you can still do that for $500. You can get a link on any university,
Mhm.
and $500. I will find somebody close to that university who will stick up a piece of paper with your link on it on their wall. I absolutely.
Yeah.
Harvard, Yale, no problem. It may not stay there long, but we'll get it up there for you. $500.
Well, if you use red spray paint on that textured wall, it'll be there a while.
Yeah. Actually, if we spray paint it on the roof, we may get it on Google Maps and satellite view.
Maybe.
Call it a local citation.
I remember telling my neighbors who were partying in the porch one day that I saw them on Street Views the day before, on the patio with the beer in their hands. They weren't pleased.
No. Google did do a lot to try and remove some of that, but yeah, it's still awkward. There's been a lot of cases where that has really hurt people.
What else did you guys talk about on the news list that Terry put together? I thought the GDPR thing in Germany was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, they're basically, in the end, any Google service, they're going to say, oh, they collect IP addresses. No go. That's the end game.
Well, I mean,
Go ahead. That's the questionable bit, that they've decided that an IP address is always personally identifiable. That one's questionable.
Yeah.
Most IP addresses are held by the provider, your internet provider.
Yeah.
It does not give any information about you, only your internet provider.
Well, that depends where you are. In the UK, all of the IP, all of the internet service providers are subject to warrants and monitored. That's where our security is applied.
Right. Our ISP does a IP address refresh every 72 hours, and it's kind of a rolling refresh, and it is terrible because our equipment is so slow and unstable. You don't always come back with an IP address. You reboot the modem anyway to reconnect properly. I can usually tell it's about the same time every morning or evening, several times in a
My
week.
provider, you can actually request and they don't change the address.
Right.
Yeah. But without that, the sheer volume of sites using a Google font, and the fact that your IP address is probably staying stable these days, at least throughout a session and often throughout a week, and often, there's a lot of people with a relatively static IP address. You can see why now, due to sheer scale, absolutely that's personally identifiable. Yeah. Because Google is able to tell that the same IP address used this local search and logged in here. It all connects, and I can absolutely see that this is one more source of data where people need to be informed that Google is taking this data. Google is recording that you visited this site.
Yeah, I think if Google says we're doing this is what we learned from it, there should be no problem with it if people understand, that.
Yeah.
Well, but the problem is with GDPR is the user has to actively opt in.
Yeah.
You can't make them opt out. And that's where it becomes very difficult for a site to do that, and without giving the user the opportunity to opt in and allow it. Because if you do it automatically, you're automatically in violation of GDPR. They have to opt in.
Yeah.
And that is what becomes very problematic.
It's a bit like universal healthcare. America will no doubt say it's impossible to do, despite the fact that 90% of countries are managing to do it just fine. GDPR has been in a long time. The UK, Germany, France, these countries have not collapsed. Our internet hasn't collapsed. Our companies are mostly doing very well. Amazon is still doing absolutely fine in the UK, obeying GDPR. Yeah, it requires some extra steps. You've got to ask people if they're okay with this, be able to turn off certain features, or you can't serve them.
I figure we're going to be back to the days of the interstitial page like on adult sites. I promise I'm over 18.
Well, the vast majority of the sites that I see that have implemented some sort of a GDPR protection for privacy, they're basically already in violation, because it's basically telling you, here's what we get. You can go in and edit these settings, but the settings are defaulted on the majority of the sites to being on. So you actually have to opt out, which is major. And those are the types of things that, where GDPR, the commission is not being real hard ass on some things.
Exactly.
That's one of the things they're being very hard ass on. If you're failing to make them opt in, you're going to get hammered. And that is, one of the things that I see as some justification for them picking on Google and Facebook as heavily as they do, because both of them are thumbing their nose at them, thumbing their nose and saying, that's not how we do things. Well, then go do things.
There's a wrinkle on
elsewhere.
that. If you've got a default and then you've got a check mark to opt out, that doesn't meet GDPR. But if you do what a lot of sites do, which is the minute they land, say, this site collects this data, select what you want it to, and you have a I'm fine with all of it, or only tracking this, or none of it, please.
And some of those do, yeah.
Because you've asked straight away. Now, even though you've got defaults that are there, and the easiest button and the one that most people click is I'm fine with everything, just to get it to go away because they want to read that page.
That's cool. Yeah.
That's legal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and part of this comes over to Facebook announcing yesterday that they're talking about leaving Europe. Facebook and Instagram. They aren't going to.
No.
They're not going to leave. There's way too much money to be made over there. But if they rattle the saber
Europe's
now,
not that lucky.
No. But I think it'll be an interesting fight. And I'm sure Google's going to be very happy to step back and let Facebook take it on the face for a while.
Yeah.
I think they think people will raise a stink and make the government let them back.
Yeah. Good luck with
I
that.
can assure you Facebook is not the popular company that everyone is looking to defend.
Yeah, I think they feel differently about it in Britain or UK than they do here.
Everyone who's had one of their posts get withdrawn. This post violates our guidelines, which is pretty much everybody hates you, Facebook. They are not going to support you. They are going to want to see the EU bend you over and make you take it without lube. Yeah, if Facebook are hoping that they're going to win that battle on popularity, they really do not understand popularity.
Well, I really teared up when I saw that Mr. Grumpy Cat had lost $239 billion of his personal wealth.
Did he look down the back of the sofa?
They just go into the couch. That's just couch money.
Well, 239 with 9 zeros after it would get my attention.
Yeah.
You could probably
I don't want to be
double
greedy. I'll
that.
take 7 zeros.
But
what it was for is just so incredible.
I was watching a stock show, and the guy basically said everything that they could put in that would drive the stock down, they put in. They do that every once in a while. It's not the first time Facebook has had a bad report and it was done on purpose.
Well, one of the things that happens, of course, is the stock took a dive, so a lot of buying went on. Because there's an
That's
awful
what
lot
I
of people.
mean.
Yeah, a lot of people are certain it's going to come back.
Yeah.
When they're in the index, companies have to own them.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's an interesting one that the news sites did, chose to say it was one particular figure that drove that, and that was the first time that they'd ever not gained audience. But honestly,
Well, it's
half
'cause the
of
world's
the
not having
audience they've been
enough
gaining for years was either bots, false profiles, or people, opening up a new account because Facebook had shut their old one. I don't think they've gained many actual new users, in a long time.
They got lots of new bots, though.
A lot of bots, a lot of abandoned accounts, yeah.
I
We
think
were
if
just talking about
Facebook was to
abandoned
do a
accounts
major
last time.
purge, if Facebook were to be a major purge, we'd see a drop of 30% of their user base minimum. And that's the one they were certain were bots and fake profiles. I report fake profiles almost every single week, and I have never seen a single one shut down.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of these are so obvious. Where, you've got some supposedly hot blonde in California who wants to be my best friend, but you look through their timeline and you can see where there used to be a black man from Cameroon
who has only had an account for 4 days.
A lot of bots do nothing but click paid links so that they won't shut them down.
Yeah. I mean, some really, really obvious ones, and you report them, and apparently they can see nothing wrong with that account. You know, there you go.
Well, they clicked on an ad. It must be a good thing. It must be a good
I just need a filter that says, if this account is less than this many months old and has a Shopify website, don't ever show me an ad. There's amazing how many of those are dropshippers from China.
There's something very weird been going on recently with Semalt, S-E-M-A-L-T, smaller tool provider, and suddenly lots and lots and lots of fake accounts seem to be trying to sign up for some of the groups I moderate with semalt.com addresses. And most of them are not getting in because they are very obviously fake accounts. But if anyone from Semalt or knows somebody from Semalt is watching this, tell them they've got a problem and it's starting to hit their reputation.
That's a shame because Semalt is actually for what it's capable of doing, is not a bad tool at all.
Yeah, but we're getting, I'd say over 50 fake accounts in the past month, all with semalt.com email addresses. Yeah. Now, I don't know if that is someone at the company trying to get in and make some positive posts about their tool. I don't know if that's with the owner of that, tool's permission, but somebody is messing about and that's starting to have an effect.
It could also just be somebody external to Semalt who's just spoofing.
It's possible, yeah, absolutely.
Call from 1573-3984-372.
Hey, Google. Siri, call Google.
I noticed we had a story about polls. Did I miss this one earlier?
A story about what?
The Google page experience more important despite there being no impact. It looks like one of these poll results. Yeah, it's from a later. This is one of my things with polls generally is I remember SEJ did a big study recently and Core Web Vitals was suddenly, like the fifth most important factor. No, it's not. You're just jumping on recent words, hoping it makes you sound like you're keeping up with SEO. But it's actually showing you don't understand what Core Web Vitals are and how they implement. This is a very, very minor factor. If your Core Web Vitals are bad, it's going to be a major factor. If your page is taking 20 seconds to load, yeah, that's going to be a huge ranking factor against you because you've met a threshold. I.e., nobody's going to wait that long, and Google knows that nobody is going to wait that long, and they're going to devalue for it.
It
if you're-
depends. It depends on what your site offers. Some sites people will wait that long.
It's
Not
rare.
every site.
No.
The other part of that is it depends on what other sites similar to yours load in.
Yeah.
And that's always been my thing is I don't need to have a 100 rating. I just have to be higher than the guy I'm competing with.
Yeah.
And,
People
and
don't
Google-
realize they're tiebreakers. They're not ranking factors, they're tiebreakers.
Yes.
So if you're in a competitive search, it'll make a lot of difference. That's why when they say, oh, it's not going to do anything, wait 6 months and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, it's going to be contextual a lot of the time. You remember the classic 3 divisions of search, that 10% of all searches are navigational. They know what site they want, and they're just going there. They're using the search engine as an alternative to the location bar, where they don't have to spell out http://. Yeah, we know that 80% are informational, and we know that 10% are what they call transactional. I would think that in transactional, how soon you can interact with that page is going to be a much more important factor than anywhere else, because interaction is the entire point of that kind of search.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think, again, it's a signal, and it's in there somewhere, and how much it is going to affect anything is going to be pretty much dependent on how much people need that to be a factor, just like everything else. If you're doing image search, the amount of content on a page often doesn't matter that much to you. It's kind of like local search, where one of the major reasons that you don't need links as much for local search, obviously, is because local, what you want is the best. I'm looking for a new gardener, a landscape gardener. I want the best landscape gardener. I want the one that is the best landscape gardener. I don't necessarily want the one that has the best website.
But you want the closest landscape gardener.
I want one that's close. I want one that's well regarded. I want one that's got positive reviews. I want one that, that people use. And I don't care if his only web presence is a GMB page and he has no site. That doesn't matter to me. I'm not there to hire his website. I'm there to, get him to come around and sort my garden out. So the links to his site wouldn't matter a damn to me. And Google knows this. PageRank is not that important. What they are looking for is enough citations to know that this business is a real thing and it's in the place they think it's in. And that's it. There's a lot of times where something that is a huge signal in one search is, not a big deal at all in another, almost irrelevant. We're all aware of, query demands freshness, where how recent that page has been created is the most important factor, because we're after news, or we want the latest weather report, or we want the latest stock figures. And the recency of that page is all important. I don't want yesterday's stock figures. I don't want last week's.
Yeah,
I don't want that wonderful article that came from Yale University, which is the definitive piece on what stock prices are all about and what affects them. I want today's stock prices. And people really do misunderstand that ranking factors only apply to a certain search. There are signals, and those are universal. Google collects signal data. Which of those signals it uses is always query dependent, and a lot of that is intent dependent. And I separate those two out because we have queries with mixed intent, where some people use this query to mean one thing and some people use it to be in another. It's a slightly ambiguous query. So it would serve multiple intents, and you'd have a mixture in the algorithm of what signals it was using based on different intentions. or it would sectionalize and have some of these and some of those. And we've seen both of those kind of SERPs around long enough to know that those are both there. I think page experience is going to be a minor factor in most cases. Certainly Core Web Vitals is. But there are probably going to be examples where it's more important.
It only matters if you have a problem and it's a popular niche or keyword. Other than that, I got hit by the page speed thing. Ignored it for 6 months because I had the GA tag in the head instead of where it belongs. So it took me a while to figure out that it was a slow website that was the hit on click-throughs and stuff like that. 6 months. All because I put that tag in the head instead of the body.
We're past the top of the hour, so we may have to call a show for today. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good week. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.